There are 5 people in the country that control telecommunications, and we got one of them here today. There's 5 people that are determining really how this country treats broadband. Only 5. We got one of them here today. There's 5 people in this country that think about how our kids are getting educated with the internet, with broadband. There's only 5 people in this country that are talking about how we think about receiving our content. We got one of them here today, so we're very honored about it. And more importantly, I've met her a couple of times, and she's always consistent, meaning that she's a very positive force, super smart, and one of her latest platforms is dealing with what we call the homework gap. And her and I align closely on that. Silicon Harlem, myself and Bruce, we think about this all of the time. So to have her here in Harlem, and the very first time I met her a few years ago, she said to me, you know, I have some New York in me. And I said, oh, okay, really? So now you're going to have some Harlem in you. And it is a great pleasure and an esteemed gift for me to be able to introduce one of the 5 people that are controlling our country or making decisions in behalf of our families, our businesses, our aspirations, the great and wonderful Jessica Rosenworcel.
No, this is good. Thank you, Clayton. And thank you also. The traffic wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So right in time performance managed to get here. And it is awesome to be here at Silicon Harlem because it's always good to be back in New York. You see, more years ago than I care to count, I lived about 20 blocks south of here in an apartment that is smaller than I care to remember. But you know, there's something about New York. Whenever you come back, it always feels like home. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. And plus, even on this rainy, dark fall day, you can feel this vitality in this city and this neighborhood and Silicon Harlem, and what you're doing here is such a big part of that. The work you're doing to transform this corner of the city into a technology and innovation hub is terrific, and it's overdue. Because you've seized here on what I see every day at the Federal Communications Commission, and that's this. The future belongs to the connected. Because broadband is so much more than a technology. It is a platform for opportunity. And all of us need to find a way to make sure that opportunity reaches everywhere. So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about digital age opportunity and how to extend it fully to the next generation. I want to talk about what Clayton mentioned. It's what I call the homework gap. And I think the best way to do it is to date myself a little bit and tell you that when I was growing up, all my homework required was a paper, a pencil, and my brother leaving me alone. And you know it was that last one that was the hardest part. But gone are the days. Today, as many as 7 in 10 teachers assign homework that requires internet access. But data from the Federal Communications Commission consistently demonstrate that 1 in 3 households does not subscribe to broadband in this country. Now, if you think about those numbers, where they overlap is what I'm calling the homework gap. And according to the Pew Research Center, the homework gap is real. We have 29 million households in this country with school-aged children. And 5 million of them have no access to the internet at home. 5 million households with school-aged children, no access to the internet at home. That means if you're a student in a household without broadband today, just getting your homework done is hard. Applying for a scholarship is challenging. And while low-income families are adopting smartphones with internet access at high rates, let me submit to you now as a parent that a phone is just not how you want to research and type a paper, apply for jobs, or further your education. And a recent study by the Pew Research Center found that more than half of teachers in low-income communities say that their students' lack of access to online resources at home presents a major challenge to integrating technology into the classroom. So not only are students who lack access at home struggling to keep up, their lack of access is holding our educational system back. It means too many young people will go through school without developing the skills that are going to give them a fair shot in the digital age. And that's a problem, because already today, half of the jobs that are out there require some level of digital skill or digital fluency. And by the end of the decade, that number is expected to be 77%. So school-aged kids without broadband access at home are not only unable to complete their homework, they enter the job market with a serious handicap. And I think all of you know that loss is so much more than individual. It's a loss to our collective human capital and shared economic future that we have got to address. And to give you a sense of how I've seen it across the country, we need to address it in places like Detroit, where 7 in 10 students have no way to get online at home. And teachers say their students regularly forego lunch at school to borrow devices and quickly rush through their nightly homework, because school's the only place they know where they can get internet access reliably and safely. We also need to address it in Charlotte, where 1 in 5 students has no access to broadband at home. And teachers have told me they are wrestling with the curriculum that they feel effectively punishes those students and makes it hard for them to be successful because they don't have access to online resources. And we need to address it in Hatch, New Mexico, where I was just a few months ago, where I learned that the high school athletes get back late from their football games, and they sit in the pitch black darkness of the school parking lot with devices in hand to do their homework, because that is the only place they know where they can reliably get a wireless signal. And of course, we need to address it right here in New York, where 1/4 of our households lack broadband at home. And you know that those households are disproportionately low income and students of color. And those are the students that queue up at the libraries before, during, and after hours just to pick up that Wi-Fi signal they need for their schoolwork. So all across the country, faces might look different, the math might be different, but it is clear that in both urban and rural America, we have a homework gap problem. There was a time when access to broadband was a luxury. No more. And nowhere, I think, is that clearer than in education. So this is a problem we're going to have to address. We need to address it because these are the skills that every student needs for the new economy and the job market of the future. We need to address it because with digitizing education comes a wave of new opportunities that every student should know, no matter who they are or where they live. All right, so what can we do? Like any challenging school problem, there's no one single solution or quick fix. It's going to take a lot of cooperative effort and a bunch of creative ideas, so here are mine. First, at the FCC, we have a program called Lifeline. It's a program that got its start 3 decades ago back in 1985. Maybe you remember 1985? It was when President Reagan was in the White House, and most communications involved a phone with a really curly cord. I still have to explain that to the millennials in my office. Today, that Lifeline program supports voice telephony in about 13 million low-income households in every state all across the country. We decided as a matter of public policy in 1985 that it was important to get every household connected. But connected in 1985 meant a phone. That's not what connected means today. So I am very proud with my colleagues at the FCC that we updated the Lifeline program this year. We gave it a reboot. We changed it so that going forward, it will not only just support voice telephony, it will support broadband in low-income households. Of course, there's a but. We are still, and this is perverse, in the paperwork reduction process associated with updating this program for the digital age. Yikes is right. But here's my hope. By next year, we will have the Lifeline program fully in place, and we will be able to get more low-income households online, and we will be able to help more of their students do their nightly homework. Second idea, we need more Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is an essential on-ramp to internet service. It democratizes internet access. And more than half of us who are online today at some point have relied on public Wi-Fi. But for many low-income households, it is their only means of getting online. So having more Wi-Fi in more places will mean more opportunities for students to get their schoolwork done. And New York already knows this. This city is doing cooler things with its old civic infrastructure than just about anywhere else by taking those old payphones that dot the streets here and remaking them into new Wi-Fi hotspots. And this city's becoming a demonstration project for the nation in how we think about infrastructure and its importance in the digital age. Let me move on, though, with Wi-Fi and get a little bit wonkish on you. Because it's not just about deployment today. It's about spectrum policy tomorrow. So as we develop our skies for the next generation of really fast broadband wireless service, we have to be on guard for opportunities to set aside more of those skies for unlicensed spectrum, which are the kind of wireless airwaves where Wi-Fi makes its home. Because as you might know, our Wi-Fi spaces are getting crowded. We need more of it. It needs to be a policy objective in spectrum policy going forward. It's what I like to call the Wi-Fi dividend, the public slice of the airwaves that we can all use. It needs to be a part of our wireless policy going forward. Third, we've got to keep tabs on the creative things that are happening all across the country. And no shame, though I'm talking about school, we can go ahead and copy them. And here's some of my favorites. And one of them is happening, of course, right here in New York, where the great, iconic New York Public Library system has taken note of all those students hanging around, queuing up to use computers, and sitting on the steps of the branches after hours just to get a wireless signal. Libraries are on the front lines of the homework gap, and they're doing something about it. In addition to books, forward-thinking libraries like those right here in New York City, but also in places like Kansas City and small towns like Cherryfield, Maine, are loaning out wireless hotspots. So students can take the internet access home with them to do their schoolwork. And that small hotspot can make a big difference. For those students, it can be the difference between keeping up in school and falling behind. Next, let me take you beyond the Big Apple to Las Vegas, Nevada, Topeka, Kansas, and Athens, Georgia. And you're thinking 3 communities that have nothing in common with one another. I mean, leaving aside the debate this week, one's the center of gambling. The other one is the heart of the Midwest, and yet a third there is a big university town. But they actually all have something in common. Despite all their differences, they all noticed they had too many students who were struggling to do their homework because they didn't have broadband at home. They saw they had a homework gap problem, and they did something about it. In their own way, these three communities each identified Wi-Fi hotspots, and they developed directories and maps to indicate where students can safely do their homework. Some places are predictable, like municipal buildings. But businesses of all stripes and sizes have pitched in to do their part. In Athens, Georgia, for instance, insurance offices, hotels like Howard Johnson, and stores like Walmart have stepped up to help out. Because when asked, they thought this was a priority for the community. And those businesses, large and small, that are part of this effort, they all get a colorful decal to put in the window announcing that they are a safe space for homework. So now imagine those decals and stickers multiplying around town. And imagine the statement that makes to students. Every one of those decals says, your schoolwork matters and your community supports you. Because that's really what it's all about. We've got to invest in the next generation and provide our communities with the connectivity that are not just going to make them survive, but make them thrive. And now is not a moment too soon, because we're talking about the future. And the future of our country, our economy, and our success is built on a digital and diverse workforce. We all know that science, technology, engineering, and math are the fastest growing fields in the new economy. We also all know that the diversity of our STEM workforce does not mirror the diversity of our population. It's time to fix this and make all of our kids, not just digital consumers, but digital creators. And there are so many things we can do to make this happen. So many of them happening here at Silicon Harlem right now. What a small step, and one we can take right now, is to make it possible for all students to do their homework. Because I think the homework gap is the cruelest part of our new digital divide. But working together, it's within our power to bridge it. Thank you.